Red team, go! My gold unit. My channel members, activate those gold cards. We have a packed, amped up podcast for today, Wednesday, March the 22nd, 2023. We're going to be talking Goldberg and Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks to AEW. Possibly Tony Khan is now speaking out on getting Goldberg and Mercedes. Also, Nia Jax to AEW. Wait, what? What? We gotta talk about it, man. Nia Jax is talking about going to AEW, and Dax Harwood admits locker room heat on FTR. So, some problems for FTR and AEW, and Dax is coming out with that confirmation and his take on it. Trish Stratus, her future in WWE post-WrestleMania. And speaking of WrestleMania, the biggest conundrum for Vincent Kennedy McMahon and Paul 3H's Levesque. What match main events night number 1 next Saturday, April the 1st, WrestleMania 39. Who main events? There's a conundrum right now. The fans, the wrestling world knows it should be the Usos versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn for the tag titles, because not only is that a massive matchup, but the storyline, Bloodline, and Sami and Owens and Cody, it's one of the biggest that pro wrestling has seen in years and years. However, for other agendas, Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley is being talked about as the main event, leapfrogging the Usos and Zayn and Owens somehow. WWE is in a conundrum. We have to discuss the latest developments and what's going on with that situation. So it is a packed, amped up, man, and there's only one way that BC wants to start it off. Let's have a little bit of humor. We gotta have a laugh. Are you having a laugh? Let's have a laugh at WrestleVotes' expense. We gotta have, right, BC's got a joke for you. WrestleVotes has come out with a new report. This one is about Roman Reigns and his future post-WrestleMania. You guys are gonna laugh, man. And if you don't know, if you're new to the channel, we have a lot of laughs. We have a lot of fun poking at WrestleVotes. They are fake insiders in the wrestling world, but somehow reputable reporters, reputable sites, publications, they actually regurgitate the BS that comes from this WrestleVotes. There's no pic, no bio, no nothing. Nobody knows what a WrestleVotes even is. Nobody knows why people are actually even following what they say. But they say stupid shit like Vince McMahon was planning on burying Gunther. But Gunther was the IC champion at the time. Gunther was being promoted heavily by Vince McMahon. Gunther was a hand-picked favorite by Vince. It made no sense. There was no indication, to the point where even Gunther and Imperium as a whole had to come out and debunk that story. They were hearing nothing like that. There is no change in tone when any of the suits and ties. They don't know where that came from. And then the same numbnuts recently said that Gunther is in line in the future to get a world title shot. Well, obviously, he's one of the top heels in the business. If Cody gets the title, then that's an obvious future match. That's like saying the sky is blue and grass is green. And Nia Jax probably shouldn't be wrestling. I mean, that's stating the obvious. But the latest one is even funnier. You guys ready for this? Hold on, man. BC's got to get a big swig of coffee. And then we're going to have a little bit of fun to start this podcast. And then we're going to get amped up into the real stories, right? The conundrum for WrestleMania's Night 1 main event. Dax Harwood talking about the locker room heat that FTR has. Mercedes talking about going to AEW's Forbidden Door and Tony Khan responding. But first, swig of coffee, and I gotta tell you a joke. A Roman Reigns report. All right. So this is what WrestleVote. Yeah, I think they said they told this to Give Me Sport, and poor Give Me Sport, whatever that even is. But they're like, we have an exclusive report by WrestleVotes, and then Forbes is regurgitating this shit, and this is how fast it makes its round because somehow people think that WrestleVotes is an actual insider and not BS. They told this WrestleVotes says that following WrestleMania, a Roman Reigns hiatus could potentially extend all the way to SummerSlam in August. Reigns, of course, defending both WWE World titles against Cody Rhodes in the main event. But despite that match setting the perfect stage for Reigns to lose the championship he's held for well over 2 years, the plans are not certain. So he says Roman Reigns is scheduled for a lengthy amount of time off after Mania, after he loses the title. But then he says, there's a caveat, then he says, but the plans to lose the title, that's not confirmed yet. Wait, you're talking out of both ends. First of all, of course, if he loses the title, he's going to be gone for a while. He's part-time already. He barely shows up with 2 titles. Of course, if he loses at Mania, he's going away for a month or 2, bare minimum. It doesn't take a fucking journalist, an insider, or some fucking Joe Schmo hanging out outside the fucking local Walmart. It doesn't take anybody. It just takes anybody with a fucking grain, like the size of a grain of salt, a speck of a fucking a brain cell in their dome piece would tell you that Roman's gonna take some time off. That's not a report. But what's even funnier, right? What's even funnier is that it's such a BS report that he's got to follow it up. He follows it up with, but, hold on, before you guys run with that he's going to take time off after Mania if he loses the title, because nobody ever would have came to that conclusion. So this motherfucker just states the obvious. His reporting is just obvious, like what we all could see happening, and it's easy to backtrack it too if it falls through. So he says, but that's only if he loses the title. If he doesn't lose the title, he's not going to take time off. Well, that's how it works. I get an instant headache whenever I see reports from WrestleVotes. It's an instant fucking headache. And they say that caffeine cures headaches. It doesn't cure this type of BS, man. The stupidity is real in this community sometimes, man. And it's not even, you can't even blame the WrestleVote. It's the people that actually take something like this and they say, this is a story. This is a good report. Thanks, WrestleVotes. Roman's going to take time off after he loses the title. But WrestleVotes said only if he loses the title. Numbnuts, that's not a report. A report would say he is definitely losing the title and has requested a 3-month hiatus. That's a report. You just don't talk out of your fucking ass. I think I'm hearing he's going to take time off if he loses. But I'm also hearing he might not lose the title. Well, that's usually how a wrestling match works, right? You don't know who's going to win or lose, right? Instant headache. Instant fucking headache. How do you fucking... He follows it up with if he loses but if he doesn't lose the title, then forget what I said. He's not taking time off. WrestleMania is next week. You would tell the company by now if you're taking time off. A long amount of time. The company would know. You don't show up the morning of WrestleMania and go, by the way, Vince, if I lose, I'm going to go wait till SummerSlam. That's not how this works. Votes. That's not how... So even the BS reporting that we know is just outright laughable / tragically BS. But then it gets taken to another level. It's like these BS reports are not even thought through. It's like so obvious that it's just made up. Where were you? BC is breaking that Vince McMahon was backstage at WWE Raw a few weeks ago, man. That was big news. BC broke that 3.5 hours before the Sean Ross Sapps, the Alvarezes, the Meltzers. The whole community was 3 to 4 hours behind BC on that report. When I broke the news that Alexa Bliss was being heavily favorited to win the Royal Rumble a few years back, when she was not even in line, storyline-wise, to even be close to winning. And then 24 hours later, Vegas had her at the number 3 spot to win the Rumble. And everybody was like, what the fuck? How does Vegas have her at number... BC, how did you know that? Of course, she didn't win, but she went from 27 to 3 in one night. I was the one that broke that news 19 hours before the whole community. And I don't even consider myself a reporter, and I won't. Ever. But that's what you call news. That's what you tell an audience. You don't come up with Roman's going to take time off, we think, after he loses the title. But I'm also hearing he might not lose the title. Then you don't have a report, numbnuts. And everybody like a Forbes and a Give Me Sport and a Sportskeeda and a Sports Illustrated has to stop giving this numbnuts the time of day. This is getting laughably tragic at this point. Now everybody has to take this shit and it has to flood actual stories that we should be talking about. So I wanted to start with a little bit of a joke. It is also fucking, it's pathetic. That people actually give this type of nonsense the time of day. But that's what we're fucking doing, man. Roman's gonna take time off if he loses the title. That's my report. I'm such an insider. I'm inside the... I got sources. Follow Wrestle Votes if you want all the news. Fucking Wrestle Geeks. Bunch of fucking gates. It's one fucking person too, right? Fucking one fucking person who somehow has people thinking they're a source when they have sources. Pathetic. Anyway, let's get to the real shit. Like facts. Like I have comments from Tony Khan, quotes from Tony Khan, quotes from Dax, quotes from Trish Stratus, right? BC's gonna give you the real shit, so you guys don't have to worry about fabricated BS. Anyway, what do you guys want to start, man? Let's start with, Trish Stratus. Trish Stratus is speaking out. She is, obviously having a big 6-woman tag at WrestleMania. She's going to be tagging up with Becky Lynch and Lita to take on Bayley, Io, Sky, and the Dakota Kai of Damage Control. And of course, that is... Is that night one? I think they had that placed at night one last I checked, but they're still swapping matches. But that's obviously a big match, and she was asked, there's all these rumors swirling about her and possibly Bayley, or her and Becky Lynch, I think it is, maybe. Is it Becky? A SummerSlam match. That's all you need to know, right? And Trish doesn't even fucking know what's happening yet. Trish said, I'm not ruling it out, but let's take it a step at a time. She said, let's see WrestleMania first. Let's do WrestleMania first. And then I gotta see. She said, because my schedule right now is all over the place. As it is, I'm putting kids to bed by like 7 or 8, she says. At 9 o'clock to midnight, I have to train. I got businesses that I'm juggling. She's setting up like daycare or something for kids. She's got a lot on her plate. The traveling alone already has her like, whoa, she says. That was a quote. So she said, let's take it step at a time. Let's go to WrestleMania first. But I'm not ruling out anything. I mean, if they present me with something, absolutely. So everybody thinks she's having this SummerSlam match. I don't know if it's a Bayley or a Becky Lynch. To do that, you would have to go heel because Becky's not turning heel. Or you just go face. I don't know how they would do that. But the point is, she's not ruling that out. But it sounds she has not heard anything about that, guys. And if she has not confirmed to anything. So that is big insight into everybody thinking that a match at SummerSlam with Trish is already in the works. Negative. Trish is telling you as honest as she can. Listen, I'm already juggling so much. I just want to get through WrestleMania first, do that commitment, and then we'll see what the future has. She is not even thinking about SummerSlam, guys. So any reports that you guys are hearing, probably from WrestleVotes. Just kidding, man. I'm kidding. But, am I? But they're false, guys. Trish Stratus doesn't even know. She's not even thinking about past WrestleMania. Now, if I could stick with WrestleMania for a second, there is a big conundrum with Vincent Kennedy McMahon, VKM, and Paul 3H's, Triple H Levesque. What is the main event of night number 1? Now, the obvious main event for night 1, Saturday, April the 1st. Next Saturday, actually, man. We're only, 10 days away, guys. Can you believe WrestleMania is in 10 nights? And they don't have an official main event yet. We all know the obvious choice is Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn going for the tag team titles. The long reign of the Usos under the reigns of Roman. And the storyline itself puts that as the main event. The match itself will obviously be explosive, but there's other agendas at play. And I don't even know how this is a discussion. Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley is in the discussion to leapfrog Owens and Zayn versus the Usos to become the main event of night number 1. I don't even know how that's even... And it's a Charlie agenda, right? I mean, even if you're a Charlotte fan, I hope you see that, right? Because why wouldn't Bianca and Kana Asuka be at least talked about to be the main event of night 1? That is a bigger women's match that most of us feel. That's the better match. Bianca versus Kana Asuka? Kana Asuka might get her first ever WrestleMania victory after being in this company for 9 years. She might get her first victory. The match itself, obviously the better of the two. We've already seen Charlotte and Rhea Ripley. We've seen that at WrestleMania a few years ago. So how does Charlotte Flair and Rhea, even if you think, okay, well, BC, I disagree. Charlotte and Rhea's the better match. Okay, well, that's the eye of the beholder then. If you think that, that's what you think. Nobody's going to throw shade at that. But how does that leapfrog Asuka and Belair? Right? And not only does it leapfrog Asuka and Belair, it somehow leapfrogged one of the best stories in pro wrestling, Sami Zayn and the Bloodline, now with Kevin Owens as well, for the tag titles, and how long the Usos have held those titles. This is clearly just to get fucking Charlie in another main event, when clearly there's not a connection, period. All of the Charlie main events in the past, or all of the big WrestleMania matches that Charlotte has had, it has not changed the reception that Charlie Flair gets. Of course, when she just came back after a hiatus, she got a nice pop, few weeks, hey, good to see her. And you've seen how drastically that's fallen off already. So, listen, I hope they go out there and they put on a really good match. They tell a really good story via in-ring psychology, some really good selling, which Charlie doesn't like to do for her opponents often in a match. But I hope they rock it out. I really do. But main event Charlotte Flair, who's not even in the top 6 in merchandise sales, guys. Not even top 6. Which tells you, this isn't BC going, well, from what I hear and what I see, she's not connecting fully with the crowd still after all these years. No, I'm telling you factually, the ratings are not showing it. The metrics on platforms like this or the buzz on platforms like social, it doesn't have Charlie as number 1. And when you look at merchandise sales, which gives you a good indication, house shows, the TV, the pay-per-views, merch. What do fans want to go there and buy the shirts and buy the merch? She's not even top 6. She hasn't been. That's a problem, guys. And you're going to put her in a main event? When your third top merchandise seller, Sami Zayn, is going to be in a huge tag match. One of your biggest rating poppers right now in Sami Zayn. And the Usos, part of the Bloodline, one of your top ratings poppers. I don't understand how this is even a conversation. And it upticked as well. There was an uptick because you had a Stranger Things parody, which I loved, by the way, because I love Stranger Things. And Rhea Ripley getting to showcase some talent outside the ring. So Rhea Ripley was playing the role of 11, right? Showing you her powers. And you hear John Cena, I think it was, narrating over what she can hear. And John Cena said something. If you guys, I can't believe this passed so many people. Nobody's really talking about this. John Cena was like talking about, like, is the pressure getting to you? Main eventing WrestleMania. I caught that, man. I'm surprised a lot of people did not catch that. You guys might want to go back. Listen to the John Cena narration over Rhea Ripley in the Stranger Things WrestleMania parody. And he mentions main eventing Mania and like the pressure building or something. I mean, do they already have it locked in that that's the main event for night one? Just to even it out, because the boys are going to rock it out in night two, Cody and Roman. I really hope that's not the case, guys. Salute to Rhea and Charlie. I hope you rock it out. They should not be the main event. That's not opinion. It's just going by facts, by numbers, by what is right and what's truly wrong. And you guys know that, man. If you really want to be honest and truthful, man, you know that that tag match has to be storyline alone. And the people that are in it, in the weight of the match itself, and what it'll produce, no question, and how you can set up the finish and tell such an amazing story even post-match, everything revolves around that. Man, there's still time. There's still 10 nights before next Saturday, man. In night one of WrestleMania, April 1st. I really, truly hope they do the right thing. Salute. I don't envy the position that they're in, but I hope they do the right thing. Put that tag title match as the main event of night number one. Now, that's the WWE front. That's the latest on WrestleMania and some of the side stories there. Let's go to the AEW side of things. There's a lot going on here, and I guess I'll start with Goldberg, right? There's this reports that Goldberg is no longer under a contract with WWE. And there's so many mixed reports. Some are saying that the end of 2022 it expired and they're just finding out now. BC has heard he still had one match left. And Goldberg himself alluded to that several times. So was he able to get out of that? And it's strange that right before Saudi Arabia, where they usually bring in Goldberg, now all of a sudden we're hearing this. But some reports are saying that he was able to get out of that last match, and he's no longer under contract with WWE. I have not been able to confirm that report. I've checked with my people. They're not knowing where that's coming from, but they're staying on top of it. That's what I'm being told. And unlike some fucks in the community, I will not give you BS. Even if I end up being wrong, at least I can tell you how much truth was put into the story or the report, or how much we truly believed there was a good chance it was going to happen. And until I have confirmation on anything, or concrete facts, proof, truth, until I have any of that, man, I can just go on what we're hearing. If Goldberg is truly out of that contract, now the word will start circling about AEW. What? But since a lot of people are wondering, Tony Khan has responded. So Tony Khan says this about Goldberg going to AEW, and I quote from the AEW boss, "I think he's a household name in pro wrestling, and certainly that's interesting to hear that Bill is a free agent. He's one of the biggest names in wrestling. Certainly will be something else for us to keep an eye out for." Listen, I don't even have a problem with Goldberg like a lot of people do. I think how he was booked in WWE in these last few years was pathetic. How he beat Bray Wyatt in Saudi Arabia in just a few minutes via one jackhammer. How he did Kevin Owens dirty, and it was Vince that did Owens dirty. It was the booking. It wasn't Goldberg that showed up and just said, "I want to squat." Or maybe we have heard stories, actually. But either way, Owens was done filthy by Goldberg and so many others, guys. Bray Wyatt, Kevin Owens, all these dudes that could have used a lot of help momentum-wise via booking were absolutely ramsacked, destroyed by Goldberg's booking. So, of course, that soured a lot of people on Goldberg. And AEW fans would call him Oldberg. When AEW first started, and for the last 4 years, AEW fans especially, they call him Oldberg. So if you're bringing him in, you're not listening to your audience. They literally call him Oldberg. Now, I'm sure a lot of them that are tried and true diehard AEW fans, they will quickly change their tune, and they will start saying, oh, Goldberg versus Orange Cassidy is going to be a dream match. Possibly 7 stars, right? This is going to be a banger and a clanger, right? Action Andretti versus Goldberg, right? And of course, we're going to start hearing how Goldberg is such an asset to AEW. But it's against what they claim they were. An alternative. We're a real wrestling company, so we're going to get Goldberg and Big Show. Well, and it doesn't even stop there, guys. So, Nia Jax, right? We're still asking Nia Jax these days. What about AEW? Like the choice is in her hands. Nia Jax recently responded by saying this. This is a quote from Nia Jax about going to AEW. I actually would consider working in AEW. I keep getting asked that question. I usually say no, but I actually would. I just met Nyla Rose, and I just think it would be kind of cool. I think it would add something different to AEW. Nia Jax in AEW. Nia Jax in AEW. Guys, you what the fuck? What the fuck? What are you talking about? Now, I understand this is Nia now finally coming around saying, listen, I got nothing now. WWE's not calling. Listen, I would actually go to AEW. I think it's going to be something different for them. I think this would be good. You know what? Let's do it. I understand this is Nia's version, right? This is what Nia's saying. Tony Khan has not commented. I'm bringing Nia in. But this is the type of shit we would say. I don't think he would hesitate at all. You're talking about the bloodline of The Rock and Roman Reigns. You are talking about family, royalty, and legacy. You're talking about a dude that brought in, well, some Big Show, Mark Henry, Jeffrey Jarrett. I mean, these are names that everybody would make fun of in WWE. Or absolutely bash. The AEW crowd would bash them. But Big Show comes over, we kind of remain silent. Mark Henry, at least we have respect for him, so we remain silent. Jeffrey Jarrett, he's on TV every Wednesday, and he doesn't get half of the bashing he got in WWE. And you know Tony would bring in somebody like Nia Jax, even though his roster is overly imploded, and he really has to concentrate on the females he has now, the females that are in there busting their ass now, but no, he'll bring in a Nia Jax. And then what? Would the fans really just accept that and try to put a twist on it? I think she'll be booked better in WWE, and AEW, I mean. I think she'll be booked better here than in WWE. It'll be okay. I don't think we have to bash her, guys. You saw how good it worked for the Big Show, right? Big Show only had like a match or two, and he got injured, and then he's been out for a year and a half. Oh, yeah, but when he comes back, I mean, he wants to have a dream match with Kenny Omega because, you know, Big Show versus Kenny Omega is a clear dream match. Said nobody ever. That's what we want to see. Big Show doing a moonsault off the top rope onto the outside, onto all of the Elite members, 17 security guards, and whoever else wants to stand there with their arms out waiting to catch Big Show like he's a fucking bouquet from a bride at a wedding. Because that's what we do in these matches, right? We just stick our arms out and we fucking wait there like a bunch of fucking schmucks. Waiting for something to fall into our arms. Well, this would be a 500-pound giant. Nobody wants to see that match. But that's what Big Show, he feels great after surgery. Now he wants to take on Kenny Omega, and he's going to be on AEW Dynamite. Big Show and Jeffrey Jarrett's going to have Dynamite matches. And Nia Jax one day might. So listen, Tony Khan's talking about bringing in people like Goldberg. Nia Jax is talking about willing to do business with AEW. Guys, where does it fucking end? The Bellas. The Bellas to AEW, right? Nikki Garcia, the Bellas are now known as the Garcias. Nikki has stated publicly that they will not be joining AEW, at least anytime soon. But then we heard that within their inner circle, they're singing a different tune and more open to the idea. You know Tony Khan would bring in the fucking Garcias, the Bellas. I mean, Brie is married to Bryan Danielson. Tony has all the respect in the world for Danielson. Of course they would come in. So guys, where do we draw the line? You could potentially be talking about an AEW, the alternative of WWE, you know, the real wrestling company. And you could be talking about having... well, what's the Big Show in AEW? You could be talking about Jeffrey Jarrett in AEW. You could be talking about Nia Jax in AEW. You could be talking about the Bella Twins, the Garcias in AEW. You could be talking about Goldberg in AEW. Where does it end? How is that different than WWE taking all of WWE's castaways? The Big Show, Nia Jax, Goldberg, the Bella Garcias. How does that make AEW better because they have a name? And I'm down, right? For opening the realm up to casual fans. You have to grow your company. And you do that with names. There's no question. These are not the names, I'm sure, AEW fans especially were thinking of when bringing in talent. Nobody was thinking Big Show or Goldberg or Nia Jax or the Bellas. Especially not Jeffrey Jarrett. And then we heard, well, Jeffrey's going to be working a lot backstage, and he'll only be on TV once in a while. He's been on TV like every Wednesday night. Title matches, big moments, winning, defeating some of the younger talent. This is how it starts. I hope AEW fans, if some of this happens, if you see a Nia Jax and a Goldberg in the near future, I hope you're honest and you call it just the same way. You keep the same energy you had for them in WWE, because the booking ain't going to be that much better. Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez and their little fucking BS awards, they may call this dude Booker of the Year and Promotion of the Year, and that's fine, right? That's for their audience, which is heavily AEW favored. But that doesn't mean that's real, right? You understand that Tony Khan is lost when it comes to booking. It's not actually the Promotion of the Year because they have not grown their audience. In fact, they're going backwards. 100,000 of their niche audience has went away. They're down to 850s now in the ratings. So I hope you realize just because we claim something or someone or an entity is top tier doesn't mean it is. And I hope you keep that same energy when you start to see these people flood in. Now, there's one name that could be going over, at least for one event, that makes tremendous sense. And that is sheer money. What is BC talking about? Swig of coffee. And I'm going to talk about banking on yourself. So Sasha Banks Mercedes Moné was recently asked yet again about going to AEW, and possibly through this forbidden door now that AEW is linking up with New Japan Pro Wrestling for their next forbidden door event installment. Well, Sasha Banks Mercedes Moné actually responded, guys, with this quote from Mercedes. "I might be open to it, but would need to get the call first. It would depend on the money. It would depend on the deal." So she's saying, I haven't even gotten had any talks yet. But her first thing she said was, I might be open to it. When you say I might be open to something, you're open to it. You're just waiting to talk shop now. You're waiting to talk business. And that's immediately what she followed that up with. I might be open to it. I'd have to get the call first, and we'd have to talk the deal and money. She said she'll wrestle around the world anywhere if the deal is right. She's already said that several times in the past, again here. So this, obviously a quick turnaround, reached Tony Khan. Tony Khan was asked about it. The AEW boss says this, and I quote, he says, It's a very encouraging thing to hear. I have so much respect for Mercedes. I think she's one of the best in the world, and certainly the shadow of Mercedes is looming large in New Japan Pro Wrestling right now. So when AEW and New Japan clash at Forbidden Door, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. It makes for a very interesting situation going into Forbidden Door. This dude, always the hype man for his own shows. Even if it's complete BS, he's going to hype that. This dude, he could somehow sell snow to an Eskimo. This dude is I would like to see him and Paul Heyman in an hour-long debate trying to get one another to believe what they believe in. That would be hilarious. But Tony Khan is already hyping up like the possibility of Mercedes. It makes for a very interesting situation going into Forbidden Door. He says it will be very interesting to see what happens at Forbidden Door with Mercedes showing up. He's already, and as we get closer, you're just going to hear him up that ante more. You're probably going to hear him talk about a big debut, right? And everybody's going to be thinking, just like, what was it, January 11th, I think, was a big debut, and everybody thought it could be Mercedes. Man, if you don't deliver, I would not hype it up, because a lot of fans were disappointed when they found out that it was not Mercedes several Dynamites ago, a month or two ago. So this is going to be interesting, man, to see. I don't think it would... we could easily say I don't think it would be long-term for AEW. It would just be this event. She's under contract. Well, she has such an interesting contract, actually. But we know that she's under wraps with the New Japan Pro Wrestling. So she can't do anything with AEW for the long term. Up front, anyway. So it's easy to say, oh, we don't think it would lead to anything more. But not true. When you do business, even for one day, when you do business with a company, you're kind of you're in their good graces as long as you're not a jerk, as long as you're not a schmuck. You don't fuck with people. You don't bring a bad attitude. You have worked there. You are now in tight with that promoter. So to say that she would never be in AEW after that, it would be asinine. The door would absolutely be open for her to come back. And she knows the lay of the land now. She meets a lot of the wrestlers. That could easily become a little bit of a second home for Mercedes, and she can easily see that WWE is not the only fish in the pond. Maybe the biggest fish, but like Bayley says about Sasha, Mercedes coming back to WWE as Sasha Banks. Bayley says, I certainly hope so. This is her home. Well, yeah, it's because it's all she knows, too. Like even going to Japan, or you can go to the independent circuit, you can go all the way around the world. Nothing is going to equate like WWE. AEW would be the closest thing, especially because it's here in the States. So we could show her, maybe I will give this a fucking 2-year contract or something. So this is huge if she actually shows up the Forbidden Door. She's open to it. Tony Khan seems to really admire her and is already laying down the teases. We'll see what happens. This just made this an interesting situation for Forbidden Door. That's his exact words. Be interesting to see, man. Sticking with AEW, man, I got to talk Dax Harwood, man. There's some heat on FTR. We already knew that, but it's interesting to hear it from the horse's mouth himself. This is what Dax says about FTR's heat and a mole in the locker room. So Dax in hot water with the AEW locker room. Of course, Dax has his new podcast, and he says a lot on that podcast, perhaps too much. At this point, I truly feel that the Dax Harwood podcast is more of a detriment to FTR than helpful. But, he feels he's got the gift to gab, and he likes to talk era. We know Dax loves to just talk. He just loves to talk. Some call it complaining. Some say he just likes to tell all. But he just loves to he loves to I don't know. There's this thing about where did he decide to sign with cash, WWE or AEW? If he goes to WWE, wouldn't he have to, maybe he wouldn't have to give up the podcast. Corey Graves gets to have a podcast. And I think a few others do too, right? So maybe he wouldn't have to then. All right. So maybe, I guess he could go to WWE and keep the podcast. I don't know. Dax loves this fucking podcast, though. But he says a little too much sometimes, you would think. I mean, that's what you kind of like. That's what you want from somebody in podcasting. On the other hand, you can't blame some people for taking it the wrong way or getting pissed off in your locker room, right? These are your brothers and sisters in the locker room. There's not the transparency because you are not in the locker room. You're just flapping your gums on the podcast, and then they take it the wrong way. And when you come back to work, you got half the locker room looking at you crooked-eyed. But Dax says this. This is a quote from Dax. One individual, and he's talking about like what gets leaked out to like journalists and reporters and how that takes on a life of its own. So Dax says one individual went into the locker room and openly said, I can't believe Dax is talking about that. Now, I think what the one specific story we're talking about here, guys, is the CM Punk situation. How he takes kind of CM Punk's side. He didn't see that type of CM Punk side that a lot of the locker room didn't like about Phil Brooks. And he likes Phil. I think we're talking about that situation. But I'm sure he's talking about in general anyway. But Dax says one individual went into the locker room and openly said, I can't believe Dax is talking about that. I can't believe he's saying that. I can't believe he's doing that. That same individual went to the dirt sheets and said, I can't believe Dax is saying that. Everybody is upset with him because they want that narrative out there. That was a quote. He says everybody is upset with him because they want that narrative out there. So that tells you that most of the locker room, they don't like Phil Brooks, right? It's not just Omega and the Bucks, but it's a lot of them feel that it was the wrong attitude for AEW and that they didn't help him. Now, there was people like Dax that came up into his defense and said, well, he was nice to us, took us to dinner a few times. But yeah, I mean, he kept to himself for the most part, and he wasn't that open to the rest of the locker room. But, I mean, he wasn't a total dick. So, he says everybody is upset with him because they want that narrative out there. Now, this is very telling, guys. When he said that one individual in the locker room openly said, I can't believe Dax is talking about that, can't believe he's saying that, can't believe he's doing that. That tells you right there that, okay, somebody is going to everybody in the locker room talking about Dax. You know everybody is not fucking sticking up for Dax, right? Maybe a person or two is like, dude, I don't want to get involved. But mostly that type of gossip and shit in a company, mostly you're going to shoot the shit back, right? Like whoever that person is saying, I can't believe Dax, that fucking idiot, is saying this shit, right? Probably the other person's like, he said that? What a fucking dick, man. I always, I didn't care for that dude from the jump. I always knew there was something about him, man. Can't trust. You know there's like that type of conversation. If this one person who clearly holds weight in AEW is going around talking shit about Dax, you know this person isn't going around telling everybody, I can't believe Dax said that, and everyone's like, fuck you, I love Dax. That's not how it works. So most of the locker room is hearing this. Most of the locker room is probably causing a stir. And Dax says everybody is upset with him because they want the narrative. They want to believe that shit. And then this person, from Dax's words, says that person then went to the dirt sheets and said, I can't believe Dax is saying that. Everybody is upset with him. So the person went to the dirt sheets and said everybody was upset with him. So that person said everybody. So that person would know, though. That's what I mean. See, it backs up what I mean. If this person is talking shit about Dax in the locker room, most of the people, because this is how humans are, they're talking shit right back with him. Right? And FTR is going to be the ones not in the good standing, not in good light with most of that locker room. And then this person feels like he's empowered by the rest of the locker room who's got his back. So then they go to the dirt sheets. You got to wonder who the person, I mean, is it one of the Bucks? I mean, we know they have a relationship with Dave Meltzer. But that shows you. And then they've been gone for a couple of months. So, you know, that can fester in the locker room without FTR's side being said. So then they finally show up a couple weeks ago. Man, that had to have been awkward. Or, you know, you put on your smile and you fake like you like each other. You got to do a lot of that. I wonder if that played into the factor of FTR's decision. We believe that they stayed with AEW. I mean, Tony Khan just brought them back in a significanter role. They've never been significant in AEW. Even when they held 3 different sets of championships, it was not the AEW titles at that time. They could never get on Dynamite television, and if they did, it was one-on-one matches or like 10-man tags, or they were losing their tag team matches, but they were hardly ever on Dynamite, their flagship show. So Tony Khan never knew how to book them. There was animosity. Dax has opened up in this same podcast how they butted heads a lot. But there's an interesting newfound respect lately from them. But I don't see how Tony would bring them back and then a month later they're out of AEW. That would be weird. But there's a chance they could go to WWE if they think the locker room environment is not healthy or conducive to their best interests. Then that would absolutely make them go to WWE. And Dax recently said that the decision that they made is going to be best for their family. Well, usually when people say that, they're going to WWE, right? Like, don't hate on us. We're going there because financially and just security-wise, it's best for our family. Which, by the way, I don't know how they can say that. I've seen Vince McMahon fire people, snap of a finger, blink of an eye, drop of a dime in the past, just to make an extra few pennies. And then, like, the same day, WWE would record record revenue. They would publicly state that they recorded record revenue the same day that they fired 100 people, 40 talents, and 60 employees. Just to get more pennies. I don't know how that's job security. But a lot of people that say it's best for my family, what the decision that we made, usually they're going to WWE. But why would Tony bring them back a month before their contracts, unless Tony's trying to get into their good graces, right? See, we're going to bring you back. You're going to be much more in a significant-er way. We're going to use you a little better than we did in the past. Or it could be like Vince, who promises you the world. You sign the contract, and then he totally lies to you, right? And you're in obscurity and irrelevancy your entire contract. I don't know. But that's telling, man. FTR took a lot of heat for siding with Punk originally, and then Dax just saying a lot on this podcast, man, and just talking a lot about how he truly feels about things. I guess that's what you want in a podcast, but you got to be careful because you're also going back to that locker room, and you know that AEW locker room, man, it's like a high school sometimes. They talk. That locker room is a chit-chatting fucking Cassandra. Everybody's a chit-chatting Cassandra, man. And they all fucking gossiping and acting like they're back in freshman year of high school. So interesting, man, to see what FTR goes. But I tell you this, man, every time I turn around, Dax is talking about the decision that they made. Relax. Let's not talk about it again until you actually show up in WWE or you show up in AEW and tell the crowd we have signed for 3 more years or whatever. Like, we should not be hearing anything more, right? Yeah, I mean, they're acting like they're Roman Reigns, or it's a Kenny Omega situation, or it's John Cena signing a contract with a big company. It's FTR. We don't need to know every day. We don't have to hear about your decision and where you're headed. Kept you guys here long enough. You know what? Let me see if the stories that I have on deck, let me see if I can get through them quickly, or would this take a little bit more of a lengthy time? Hold on, guys. I got a couple stories on deck. I don't know if I should hold off on them. By the way, guys, a couple of things real quick. Rock's daughter is going to be, Simone Johnson is going to be debuting in a multi-man tag match at Stand and Deliver. So this is going to be our first chance. I don't expect her to be in there too much, but I do expect them to heavily train her, rehearse her, and plan her for some sequences. Some really good sequences, and then make a hot tag or some shit. But I don't expect too much, but you're going to get enough where people are going to go, oh, she's got it, right? And they'll heavily script that out. And also, non-wrestling related, congrats to Japan winning the World Baseball Classic. That was big time, man. Beat the United States. We took an ass whooping. We take the L. You get up. You become better, right? That's all I can say. And that did probably hit the numbers of NXT last night big time, I bet. We'll be seeing that later today. And WWE Raw's rating, that was a 1.774. So they went up approximately 72,000 fans, guys. WWE Raw went up 72,000. Nowhere near where they should be going into WrestleMania. You should be fucking around at the bare minimum 192 million. Going into Mania, this is you got one more Monday Night Raw, guys, and you're still in the 1.7s. So there's no way 3H's, VKM, nobody in that company can celebrate. But at least they went up 72,000. The demo 0.59, or it was a 0.55, and then there was a adjustment that was closer to 5.9. I think we gotta see what the actual call was, but it's a 0.3 more than last week. So they went up in every metric, but this is no cause for celebration. They are drastically down before WrestleMania. And lastly, real quick, man, Booker T, one of his biggest pet peeves in wrestling, and he says it should actually be a fireable offense, is leg slapping in pro wrestling. Now, BC doesn't have a problem with it. I totally get the illusion and what they're going for, and it does help the sound when you kick somebody in the face. It's when it's overdone, right? The Young Bucks, for instance, is what really got this conversation started a few years ago. It's because they do 1,000 super kicks in a row, and the opponent kicks out at 2 1/4, right? 1,000 super kicks, and the opponent just jumps up afterwards. So people were like, all right, well, if it's going to have that effect, then stop all the sound effects. We clearly see the illusion is broke if you keep doing the same trick 1,000 times in a row. So the Young Bucks have absolutely exposed it, and others have followed suit. I'm okay with the leg slap if you do it like Shawn Michaels did back in the day. Once in a blue moon. His finisher was sweet chin music. Once in a match, at the very end, okay, it's the illusion. You hear this loud fucking, right? It's the illusion. It's the magic trick. Don't overdo it. So I understand what Booker is saying. I don't think you should completely lose the leg slap. It does help the illusion, and I actually like it. It's when you overdo it, that cannot happen. So I'm 50-50 on there with Booker. And just like everything else Booker says, it always becomes pretty controversial. But that's where BC stands on that. I thought it would be a light... We started the podcast in a lighthearted way, even though it just gives people a headache. You know, if you heard the start of the podcast, you know what I'm talking about. But we're going to end it on a lighthearted note that does not give us a headache. And that's... Booker T and his controversial takes. But BC sees it 50-50. I don't mind it, just don't overdo it. This has been the Amped Up Podcast with BC Amplified for Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023. I, of course, have been your host, BC Amplified. I hope at some point during this whole entire podcast, you smash that up, help out the algorithm, help out the channel. Much love and respect. I kept you guys here too long. I wanted to do a roll call. I will be doing it. And by the end of the week, man, my channel members are getting a full roll call, man. And we did get some new channel members in too. So I want to make sure that they're added on anyway. But I will be doing a full roll call this week. All of my gold card members, my channel members. And there was some super thankers, man, on regular Amped Up podcasts like this that are put up not live. There's a super thanks button. It's called thanks down below. YouTube put it up so you can tip the content creator, throw the creator a coffee or beverage of their choice. YouTube is always thinking of a way, right? Because they probably get 30% of that shit. So they're always thinking of a way that we can get a nice thank you from our audiences. But there is a button down there called thanks. I call it super thanks. And there was several of you guys that threw BC a coffee on that thanks button down below. So I want to also give a shout out to you guys. So I'll be doing a roll call for my gold members. I'll be giving my shout outs to my super thankers. So a lot of shout outs in the next video or two. It depends on times like this. And I didn't want this to go a full hour, but it looks like we're gearing that way. So lots of thanking my unit coming up, guys. Much love and respect. BC Top Guy, I'm out. Think, be, live, amped always. And until next time, you know we the ones. The rest of this community, they the twos. It's distant. It's not even close. BC saying check you.